Hello, and welcome to another podcast for writers. We are the Elite Lizzard Publishing Company, and I am your host, Elizabeth Campbell. Today, we're going to talk about a spooky theme story and how you can make sure that it's age appropriate for who you're targeting. So, with Halloween at the end of the month, we thought we'd write a great spooky podcast for you so that you can get your spook on. All right, so we're going to break it down in age groups to kind of help really focus on how deep we can go into scary stories. So as a writer, we want to make sure we keep all these things in mind when we're writing for all different age groups. So for children, ages 5 to 7, we're going to make sure that we're going to have some spooky elements, but we're going to make sure that it's light and whimsical frights. So nothing that'll cause like nightmares. So a great tips for this that I can offer is use monsters and magic. Create fantastical creatures like a friendly ghost or a silly monster that has exaggerated quirks. For the tension building, we want to make that the suspense a non-threatening way. Like very mild would be an example is, opening a mysterious door or hearing a creak in the floor. For the resolution, we want to always provide a comforting one where the scary element is always resolved either with humor or through bravery of the character. And we also want to use familiar settings. So a cozy environment such as, bedroom, forest, or backyards. Don't go too far off of that because fear of the unknown can be a little bit too much for children. It's daunting. So for a great example of another book that's already published for you to kind of bounce ideas off of would be Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. And it uses a blend of the child's imagination, just enough spookiness that's balanced with the reassurance of home. So think that if you're writing for that age group. Now, for ages 8 to 10, we're going to increase the tension and mild peril. So by this stage, kids can really handle a lot more tension and are excited by a little bit of thrill. But the content should still steer clear of anything deeply disturbing or gory, obviously. The fear here should be something slightly darker, obviously, but it should be contained in a world where good triumphs in the end. So some good tips for that is to use cliffhangers, mysterious figures, or unexplained events. You can create tension through what isn't seen rather than what is. Mild peril. So characters can be put into situations where they need to escape like some danger, or they got lost in the woods. Maybe they're being chased by something unknown, or are encountering a haunted object. Spiritual elements, you could introduce a more traditional horror element like a ghost or witch, but you have to keep them in the context where they aren't exactly terrifying. So the idea of the unknown should be thrilling but not paralyzing. So we have a fine line there. You still want to have some humor. So you want to break the tensions of the moments of scariness with, some jokes. And that way the scary elements are subverted, like a skeleton who can't keep his bones together, for example. A great book to bounce ideas off of is Goosebumps by R.L. Stine. And that is ideal for this group. And the scares are often, playful at the end with a twist, but it doesn't have like a long-lasting fear. Now, for ages 11 to 13, Psychological horror and heightened stakes. Preteens, they begin to crave more complex, darker stories. So at this age, kids are better equipped to deal with genuine fear and horror. So you can introduce moral ambiguity, psychological tension, and characters facing more serious consequences. So tips for that would be to tap into the fears that are more psychological. So, for example, isolation, failure, or the unknown again. Like stories about getting lost in time, an abandoned house with like strange memories, or creatures that mess with somebody's mind is appropriate. You can do an unsettling atmosphere, so you can focus the mood and tension. You can use a more detailed description of the eerie settings, like an abandoned asylum or a foggy forest, and that you can use that to build the suspense. Allow readers to imagine the terror lurking behind in the background. Twists and in the story, and dread, so you can let the reader know that something bad is coming without always showing it. The looming fear of what might happen can actually be more frightening than the monster itself. So, character vulnerability, you want to show a little bit more weakness of the character and their doubts, making them more relatable to kids that age. So kids can handle a more deeper emotional and psychological development. So for that, I would say a great example to bounce ideas off of would be Caroline, by Neil Gaiman. Where fear stems from obviously psychological manipulation, identity loss, and an eerie alternative reality. So the dread builds slowly, giving the reader a sense of its impending doom. So this is a great example of that, perfect for that age group. So for ages 14 and up, so by the teenager years, they're more than capable of handling like a full-blown horror with more disturbing themes, intricate plots, and emotional depth. Stories can evolve into a psychological terror, supernatural threats, and darker aspects of human nature. Great tips to write this particular age group is, themes that can include death, betrayal, loss, or the frailty of the human mind. You can explore deep existential questions and fears like losing a loved one, or grappling with identity, or facing internal demons. You can incorporate elements of real world for the teenagers that they may fear, which is like stalkers or bullying or social isolation, or loss of control. Horror can come from people such as, supernatural forces. Here you really want to have graphic imagery. So at this stage, the readers can handle, more grotesque graphic descriptions as long as they serve the plot and they aren't gratuitous. So you have to think about that. You can have ambiguous endings. Don't feel the need to resolve anything, because you really don't have to resolve it neatly now, because teens are more open to stories where not all questions are answered and where the line between good and evil is blurred. For example, anything by Stephen King is, It is a good example of a horror story for older teens. So it mixes supernatural terror with real world issues like bullying, trauma, childhood fears coming back to haunt the character. So all these things are great makings for an epic horror story. So If you're interested in writing this kind of genre for horror, I encourage you to experiment with the different types of fear, but always stay mindful of the emotional impact the story has, especially on a very young reader. So this is, you know, this podcast is meant for you to understand really the dynamics behind writing a scary story. So I hope that you got some valuable information from it going forward, and good luck in all your spooky endeavors. And we'll be coming with another podcast to help you writers at another time. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you're interested in publishing with us, you can check out my website. It's theelitelizard.ca, exactly how it's spelled. And you can check all of our self-publishing and publishing information. And we have a blog that's helpful as well if you're interested in knowing facts about publishing as well. So I hope this was informative for you. Have a very spooky writing experience. Ciao.